Um, Good afternoon if you're on the Eastern time zone, and just hello, regardless of where in the world you are. Um, this is the first of hopefully many useful webinars and virtual. Uh, oh, I see what's going on. Give me 1 second. I am going to mute myself. I had to leave the. Oh, if I do that. Oh, uh, hmm. How can we make this work? Okay, so I see that we have one viewer. I'm going to try and mute my. Um, okay, I just muted my back window, which was playing the live video on YouTube. In case you can't hear me, please ping me on chat. I think all systems are go on my end. I apologize for the break. So welcome everyone to our first webinar. We hope to do several of these depending on needs that are raised either by inner circle members or members of our wider community and audience. So just a quick summary of why we're doing this today's webinar. I personally use Basecamp for my business. It started out as a couple of projects, and now I have all my projects running on Basecamp. And it seemed to me when I first starting Trouble to be a great way of keeping everybody up to date on when their podcasts would air and other activities that we wanted to have under this banner. Um, I am not paid by Basecamp to promote it in any way. The reason I love this project management tool is because you don't necessarily have to sign up for an account on Basecamp. Just by me adding your email address to the project in Basecamp, I can still make sure that you get any outbound messages. But the reason I'm having this webinar today is so that if you're a part of the inner circle and you want to proactively interact with other members in the group, this is our platform today for engaging until we raise funds to actually, and until the point that it actually makes sense to build a separate community product for starting Trouble. So that's the reason for hosting this webinar today. We're doing this through YouTube Live and Hangouts on Air because we have a YouTube channel already, and Hangouts on Air allows me to do screen share and things like that. And it's a free tool for me. I'm probably paying for it because I have Google for Business, but anyway, it works out great. So a few topics I'd like to cover today. I'm not necessarily going to take you through all of Basecamp, but how we use Basecamp to keep in touch with each other is what I'm more interested in covering today. So a few of the topics that there's about 7 in my list. So what to do when you receive an invite, and whether you choose to just receive emails or you choose to set up an account. If you set up an account, how to go about it. What does a Basecamp project look like? And then I'm going to focus on 4 features that we actively use within Basecamp. One is the message board, the schedule, the forwards feature, and the check-ins. So without further ado, let's dig right in. So I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm going to switch off my video for a second so that when I share my screen doesn't do this weird window in window type of thing. So let me do a screen share. Okay, it did do the window and window type of thing. Okay, so I have a Basecamp account under the IndieRise banner, but just to show you how I would interact with it as another user who is not an admin user, I sent it to my personal account. I sent an invite to my personal account, which you'll see I have set up, and I haven't opened yet. So IndieRise Rucha Rokhle sent personal Rucha Rokhle an invite, and here's what I get. Here's what I have. So I added myself to the project in Basecamp, and there's some introductions there, but also it gives you a nice summary of who are the people on this project and what sort of things have been recently posted, and the events and so on and so forth. So like I said, the nice thing about Basecamp is if I add you to the Basecamp project, you can just choose to interact via emails. But if you wanted to do more, you would go ahead and click the green button which says join Rucha in Basecamp. Now, I'm going to join my personal account to Basecamp. So let me see. I will use so I can either make a new account with an email, but I'm very Google centric anyway. So I'll choose the use my Google account feature. And because I'm signed into Chrome with two accounts, I'll pick the account that I'm not an admin with. Google has this OAuth workflow where you have to make sure you accept all these things that Basecamp would like to use, and just I'm going to say allow. And this brings me to okay, so this brings me to the IndieRise Basecamp project that I can now, there's a Basecamp account, and within that account, I have access to the Starting Trouble podcast, Keeping Up project, which I can go on to click. You can ignore these. This is, if you are an active Basecamp user, be sure to make a note of these notifications that Basecamp will push via the browser and all its various apps. But I'm going to now go into the project that I was added to. Okay, so this is what you do if you set up an account and when you receive an invite. So before I go deeper into what a Basecamp project looks like, let me just take a step back and show you what happens if I hadn't really set up an account in Basecamp. So every time somebody writes into Basecamp using one of the 4 features that we're about to discuss, I get a notification. When I get a notification, the way I can reply back into Basecamp so that other members see it is by just replying to the email I get from Basecamp. So this is the wonderful thing about Basecamp. I don't need to have an account in order to be able to interact via email. But if I wanted a richer set of features is when I would set up an account. And then, of course, I can unsubscribe and so on and so forth. Here's the latest activity. These are the sorts of emails you will get from Basecamp on a regular basis if you are not set up with an account. Okay. So now that you have set up an account, What is a Basecamp project? Basecamp project has typically 7 different things that you can do within the project. There's campfire, there's message board, to-dos, schedule, automatic check-ins, docs and files, and forwards. We're going to talk about a few of these in more detail. Let me just give you a quick overview of what these different sections do. Basecamp as a product, it came about like several years ago. I think it's over a decade old. But they wanted to move away from a very linear interaction that usually happens on projects and allow for a more collaborative project approach. And in case of Basecamp, the whole collaboration notion is promoted using the concept of discussion threads. And you'll see that in every section of the Basecamp project, except Campfire, these discussion threads sort of allow a multi-track interaction with different people on the project. And I'll explain that when we get to the details around message boards, etc. So Campfire is slightly different. What Campfire allows you to do is it's like this one long running chat list. So this is where anybody can come in, and if you're a user of Slack or if you're a user of Skype groups, you'll see that it's like this one big group chat that people can just come in and continue to, have conversations in. So that's the one different piece in Basecamp, where you can either do it this way or you can do it in the discussion thread approach way. Message board is where individuals can post messages, and I'll take you through that a little bit more. And then you can continue to have a conversation under that single message thread, depending on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So for instance, we've recently created a couple of threads for a couple of projects, one which is led by me, the other which is led by Tiffany. And then you'll see all the updates happening under those threads as the project leads take those projects further. You'll also have seen a lot of messages that come from me. They are essentially message threads that I create using the message board. To-dos, we don't use a whole lot right now, but as we begin launching projects, I think these will become very useful to individual members that are leading different projects under starting trouble. So you can make lists of action items and assign them to different people. So, this just helps get things out of your head and onto a list of actions that are, again, I think if you, for instance, created a test list, and again, once you have an item on the list, there are test item 1. Again, within that list, test to do. Time to Rucha. This to Ruchas now. Now add this to do. Now, once I create the to do, I can edit the to do, make changes, save changes, add end dates, etc. If I go into the to do, again, like I said, because Basecamp is structured around conversations and threads, you can add comments to the to do, depending on what's going on around that action item. Schedule is nothing but a calendar. We're now beginning to use schedule to schedule invites so that I don't have to do it in 2 different places. We do have wider audience events that are promoted via meetups, and then inner circle activities such as the regular monthly inner circle brunch that we will start posting under schedule. Again, every scheduled item, once you've created that, has discussion threads under it where you can add comments, etc. As you can see, this is a recurring theme in Basecamp, and it's wonderful because it allows for a free flow of conversation. There's no hierarchy. There's possibilities with multiple tracks, etc., which is truly how teams work, and that's why we love Basecamp at Unirise. Automatic check-ins are interesting. I think for me, initially, when I was starting Trouble, it was impossible to always, apart from giving members updates on the next episode, so on and so forth, it was very difficult for me to figure out a way to get members to engage with each other more. Automatic check-ins is wonderful because it allows you to sort of prod people into interacting. So for instance, I've set up several different check-ins in the past. The current one that you will see, I think, every other Friday at 9 is just a question asking the network, how are you doing? Is there anything we can help with? Or another one that you probably keep seeing is there anything you've seen lately that inspired you? That Nancy this morning had a wonderful answer for, and she's already created that post, and it's on LinkedIn. And if you'd like me to share the link, let me know. I'll post it. But so, I can set up a cadence at which this question will get asked to the group. Idea is not to set up anything that is annoying, but something that makes people sit up and think. Fridays are great for like more introspective answers. Mondays are great for quick check-ins. I mean, typically that's how people work. So that's an automatic check-in. And I think I'm already going into the details. So I might skip that later on. So docs and files, again, we don't use this a lot on Starting Trouble, Keeping Up. But this is where you could link Google Documents, create folders, upload files, so on and so forth. So it's your doc management system within the project. Going back, the final one, which is what I'd love for the community to make use of to a greater extent, is forwards. Essentially, when you get a lot of emails, when I get emails from Becky, for instance, for events that she has coming up, and I want to be able to, without losing time, quickly promote her event, where I may not have time to copy paste an image and set up a message thread and so on and so forth. What I'll do is I'll just forward her email to this project in Basecamp, and I'll show this to you in just a bit when we talk about the feature focus forward. So that really makes my workflow quick when I want to be able to promote different events, etc., that other members are organizing, because our community is all about supporting and giving support and showing up if someone needs, needs the numbers, etc. So really, that's the Basecamp project overview. I'm going to quickly check if there are any questions or if anybody else has joined. Apparently not. Okay. So let me dive deeper into the feature focus. So four features we'll focus on in this webinar: message board, schedule, forwards, and check-ins. Let me go into message board. As I said, message board is where I use this a lot with to keep you all posted on activities that are coming up. So you'll see a long thread of messages. So in Basecamp 3, these messages, I don't think maybe you can even archive a few. No, there is no ability to archive. In the previous version of Basecamp, you were able to archive a few messages, so it sort of disappears from your context. I'll also talk a little bit about search in Basecamp, which I hadn't planned on, but since I've already taken you through check-ins, I'll talk about that instead when we do the feature focus, because search is a very, very useful tool. And I use that a lot because I create so many message threads. So on the message board, essentially, you can just create a message by clicking on the green button, which is post a message, and write a headline. You can see there's a great WYSIWYG editor where you can attach documents or images and format it to a certain extent without it getting too heavy on the formatting end. And then you can even, if you know, as our membership grows, you can even post the message to specific people. You know, by clicking on change and like selecting the people that you want to notify using this project. Okay, so back to the message board. Once you've created the message, for instance, I'll click on this one. You are able to do a bunch of things here. You can edit the message, right? I will save changes without editing. You can copy to a different project, but you can ignore this. You can, okay, this is where the archive is. You can archive the message or you can delete it if you've created it. Create a public link or send this to someone specifically. So, you know, for now, I'll just skip over some of these because I don't think it's critical for you to like use them. But if you do, feel free to explore Basecamp. I'm not trying to sort of be the Basecamp trainer here, just trying to show you features that we use. You can also, because there are so many messages now on the message board, you can bookmark certain things so you have quick reference points. The other lovely thing about Basecamp is it's really democratizing the collaboration effort. So, and you know, removing the negativity. So there's no thumbs up and thumbs down. Instead, if you want to react to somebody's post in a positive manner, you can actually clap for that person. I really like that. I really like that they got away with, you know, removed like any negative connotation around it, and that you can flag it and like it, and that's about all. You can of course add comments. Again, clicking on the comment box reveals a WYSIWYG editor where you can add like a bunch of things. Ignore this little green circle that you see. This is a browser extension I have called Grammarly, which helps me ensure that content that I am creating is grammatically correct. And if you're interested in that product, I'll demo it to you some other time. But so that's how you add comments. And then you can opt to get stop notifications for this particular thread if it gets super heavy, people are interacting with it a lot, etc. And then you can add or remove people if you've created the message in the first place, I think. Next, I'll go to schedule. Setting up schedule is also very simple. And I love that they've split it up into what's coming up versus looking back. Looking back is all the older calendar events that we had. And what's coming up keeps the interface clean in terms of what's the next thing that's coming up. And I guess these things will get populated or open up depending on what events are scheduled. You can subscribe or unsubscribe from this calendar if you, again, find some of the members creating a lot of events and it creates noise in your mailbox. So instead of unfollowing the whole project, you can, you know, choose to unsubscribe from the calendar. Or if you want to be specifically notified about events that are coming up, feel free to subscribe. Again, you can bookmark individual things or bookmark the whole schedule piece. And so when you create, sorry, let me go back. So when you create an event, again, you can set things up around start date, end date, whether it's an all-day event, who are you with, you know, if you want to specifically tag a couple of members and some details around what the event's about. Again, you can, the nice thing is you can either choose to notify specific people or everyone, or notify no one, and post the event. And once you post the event, I'll just go back to an older event. Again, there is the ability to discuss the event through discussion threads. There are some links to add. If there is a particular event that you see on the schedule, and you'd like to add it specifically to your calendar, there are links in here that you can do it with. Apparently, it's a very democratic tool. So even though Rucha Gokhale at IndieRise has created this event, Rucha Gokhale personal account seems to be able to edit it, which is totally fine. I mean, we all work on trust and maturity. Okay, so that was schedule. Then quickly about forwards. So if you wanted to be able to forward certain emails that you're getting in your mailbox, that may be interesting. You can click on this, and there are two ways to forward it. You can either just forward it to Basecamp in general, and then Basecamp will, if you have multiple projects, which most of the members will not, if you have a Basecamp will send you a follow-up in terms of which project you want to bucket it under. Or if you know that you have to forward this directly to your this project on Basecamp, you can use this specific email address, copy it, and then go into your email and say, I want to, sorry, supposing I want to forward this, then I would just, I would hit forward and copy. Okay, let me choose a better one. Sorry. Okay. So you can hit forward, add the specific. Oh no, that's not it. I guess I didn't copy it. Add the specific email address and send. And when you send, after a little while, you'll see that it might take a couple of minutes. It might take a couple of minutes, but after, if you refresh, okay. Let's see, let's try again. Yeah, that's the email that we just forwarded. And, everybody, you can choose, I think. Let me see. I think then after a while, I should get an email from Basecamp asking me who I'd like to notify about that particular forward, etc. So yeah, so that was forwards, and then I promised to show you how find works. So now I don't, okay. If I want to look for something specific, like when did Sharon's episode air? So I'll look for Sharon, and I know that I want to look for it in messages posted by anyone in. Well, I have only one project, so it should be fine. And then there are other things that I can search by, but I click on go, and it's going to show me wherever Sharon showed up. So this is my quick way of finding out when did Sharon Malcolm's episode air, and that was on Jan 16th. So that's just one example of how you can use the search feature in Basecamp. Sorry, let me stop. And that's all there is to Basecamp, really. It's a very simple, very collaborative tool. I hope this has been helpful. And if you watch this video later on and have questions about certain things, feel free to email me. Email me with any questions. Any questions about this webinar at start@indyri.se, and I'd be happy to help you. Thanks, and have a wonderful day ahead. Looking forward to doing more events, both virtually and in person. Take care. Bye.